statement so that you have an opportunity to digest this information, because at the end of the day, what we like to do is have everyone go back to their clubs and really put DEI as a focus going forward. So going into that a little bit more about this DEI, what Rotary's statement continues is that we are creating an organization that is more open and inclusive, fair to all concerned. Oops. I think I've messed up my presentation here and whatnot. Inclusive, fair to all concerned, building goodwill, and benefits our community. So I'll correct this PowerPoint so that you guys have the correct version of my slides here. And in their in their final statement, it's we welcome people with different perspectives and ideas who will help Rotary to take action and create lasting changes in our communities and in our world. So the reason why I kind of put it this way is because I wanted everyone to kind of be able to digest this information, and then really you're going to hear the same words, right? It's about the perspectives, it's about ideas and creating lasting change. And that's how we can create the awareness of what DEI is all about. So let's break it down, each of these three words a little bit further. So diversity includes, but is not limited to, race, color, ethnicity, nationality, religion, socioeconomic status, veteran status, education, marital status, language, age, gender expression, gender identity, sexual orientation, mental or physical ability, genetic information, and learning styles. So when we're thinking about diversity, it is important to remember the terminology has broadened, okay? So 10 years ago, diversity was basically racial and ethnic minorities. But today, as you heard me say, a mouthful, it includes, but not limited to, all the things that I've mentioned. But rather than remembering all the things that I said, let's define diversity by how Rotary defines diversity. It's welcoming people of all backgrounds, cultures, experiences, and identities. Okay. So I don't know if Naomi, do you want to do breakout, or we can just have open conversations right here? But the first breakout that we should have is regarding diversity. So what I'd like everyone to do is come up with at least 3 groups that could be categorized in backgrounds, culture, experiences, and identities. This is just to give everyone else an opportunity to share what they think are categories for diversity that is not the traditional things that we normally think about when we think about diversity. Oh, you're on mute, Naomi.
Benson can break us up into groups.
Yeah, okay. I think if you want to have a discussion, I mean, we've got 52 people on the call, so I break it up into 10 groups of like 5.
Okay. So Conrad, how many minutes?
Let's just have about 5 minutes to have a discussion about this. And all it is, like I said, come up with 3 groups that you would consider and classify as in the category of diversity.
Okay, give us an example of that, Conrad, so people will go and come up with 3 groups.
Sure, absolutely. So when we talk about diversity and we talk about experiences, one way to look at it is in our clubs, do we have a mix of people who are newcomers to the island versus people who are Kama'ainas, longtime residents, right? So that's one way to look at diversity in terms of experiences, right? So it's not your traditional male, female, old, young, millennial, baby boomer, and stuff like that. So it's coming up with another type of way to categorize diversity, and utilizing experience would be one way to categorize that.
Okay, so, sounds good. You ready to go? Naomi, 5 minutes then? Okay, I made them smaller now, like groups of 5. Okay, so here you go. Yeah. So Naomi, the shorter the time, the smaller the group has to be. Okay, let's see who doesn't go. How are you guys doing? Good? Okay?
Doing
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. So you guys clear about what you're going to do? I'm sorry there isn't much time to do it, so you guys will have to kind of figure it out here. So are you clear about what you guys are discussing?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm going to go back out and see if anybody didn't get into a room. So let's see. I got to figure out how to get back out here. So go, yeah, go. You guys keep talking, and I'll, like I said, I'll figure out how to get myself out of here. So let's see.
Well, good morning, everyone. So
Hi, Keisha. Good morning.
Hi, I'm Keisha King. I'm with Rotary Club East Honolulu. So I liked his example of the diversity being a little bit different when you think about those who are Kama'aina versus those who are new to the island. So I think that was a good example to think about how it's different, or to think about it differently. So starting with that one, does anyone else have a different type or an idea of diversity?
I think I have something along the lines of that. If you come from a military background, that's a very different experience.
Exactly. I thought of that one too, military versus non-military, whether you're active or retired. And certainly if you're temporary, if you're here in the military and you know you're going to be here for a short time, but you're also Rotary or at least interested. So I think that brings a great deal of experience. So we will add military to our list. Anyone else have an idea?
Even that when you mentioned active and retired, and I know you're referring to military, but I think that also refers to our general Rotary population, right? We have many times the retired, those who are retired, who have far greater flexibility, and then those who are employed. And actually, you know, sadly with COVID, even to look at that, you know, we have those at poverty level or unemployed? Are they represented in our clubs? You know, do we provide an open door and sponsorship so that they too can participate?
Very good. Yeah, COVID has made such an extreme change on everyone's day-to-day life. I think we should also consider business owners who have either changed their business format, whether or not, for example, the restaurant owners who are now offering more outdoor environments to eat versus the sit-down restaurant format indoors that we're familiar with, but also different ways that business is being conducted for everyone. So I guess that's something, there's something there. I'm not sure what the roles are.
Okay, everybody should be rolling back in here in about 5 seconds.
Oh, it's funny how he cuts you right off and sends you back to the main room.
Yeah, here we go. Gallery.
Well, welcome back, everybody. I hope you guys were able to come up with some 3 groups that would be categorized in backgrounds, cultures, experience, and identities. So Naomi had a great suggestion. If you could put in your chat some of those groups that you came up with and whatnot, so that we can memorialize the different groups and stuff like that. So why don't we go around and share with this audience here what everybody came up with. So group 1, what did you guys come up with?
Well, we talked about basically our issues primarily attracting younger folks, and we talked about some clubs having difficulty with attracting Native Hawaiians into their group. So most of it had to do with not so much the experiences, but it had to do with the identities and cultures that we didn't seem to be very successful at attracting. And what we're trying to do in the Honolulu Club is to develop a fellows program, a fellowship program that we can use to perhaps entice young professionals to come in and do some scholarship or help them with dues until they could become true Rotarians. But that's our way of perhaps diversifying and bringing our levels down. Our biggest concern right now is age.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Rich, for your contributions to this discussion. Also, just know that when we talk about the diversity in our clubs, it is also to look at and evaluate whether there's diversity to retain your members as well as to acquire new members. So we go on to breakout number 2. Group number 2.
Hanukkah.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, no. I think one we kind of talked about, like Arlene had a great point. I think one of the things that I think overlook in terms of diversification is like vocationally. I think people do have kind of this preconceived notion of Rotary that there's you have to be a CEO or a part of a corporate company, but there's a lot of us who are small business owners, and I think being able to represent that to the community, I think, is important. Also, something that I think people don't really realize, and I think it's coming up more specifically with even the younger generation. I think a lot of people think millennials are still the like majority, but we're not. Like, we're in our 30s and 40s already. Like, Gen Z is the new in, right? And a lot of things that they focus on is gender spectrums and gender expression. And I think a lot of times we as an older generation only think of it as sexual orientation, but sexual orientation has kind of segmented into so many different things, and really understanding what gender neutrality is, gender expression is, as opposed to sexual orientation, I think is something that we have to realize, because the younger generation under us, they don't have gender norms like we do.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Thanks, Randy. All right, group number 3.
Thank you, appreciate it. Well, we had a good group and a good discussion. I'll offer one comment, Conrad. You had mentioned that 20 years ago, diversity meant something very different. And I made the comment that I happened to work for a major aerospace company 20 years ago, and they opened it by saying, diversity is not what you think it is, and it's not equal opportunity. That's the law of the land. Diversity is our business imperative. If we're going to thrive, we don't want to all talk the same and think the same. We're looking for diverse opinions, and that sticks with me. But we wrestled a little bit with how we put this 3 groups into a bag, but some good discussions. I think one of the things we came up with, if you look at a Rotary group, is you have your, if you will, your traditional, maybe this is the the Rotarians you're used to over the many years who've come out of business, traditional business senses and ways of doing business. Then we have other models, including, our millennials and the younger folks who actually are used to different means of communicating, different means of working, and looking for different experiences in a Rotary Club. You have remote workers who are whose place of business is not a mortar and brick factory or a shop, but downstairs in their home office, and they work remotely, and their needs need to be considered as well. We have workforce experiences in that we've got a fair segment of people, for example, women who have dropped out of the workforce for a bit, raising young children, and are now re-entering the workforce and looking at the change spectrum. And cultural needs, of course, in that we have, in Hawaii, we're quite culturally diverse, but in our Rotary clubs, we don't always reach out and find ways to include folks from different cultures. And it's true in my club and some others that we're underrepresented in Asian Pacific Islanders. We also, in my club and many others, are underrepresented in younger people. We're good in our sexual diversity and in our ethnic diversity in general, but we have gaps there that are different from each club that we need to address. And it's key that we do that. If we only get our news sources and our information from people who think exactly like we do, we can be led astray. January 6th at Congress was kind of about that. And so by bringing this very diversity of opinions to all we do, we prosper.
Thank you, Dick. So yeah, in the interest of time, we might not be able to get through all 12 groups. So if everyone could put in the chat what your group came up with, that would be great. We have time for one more group, and I'm just because I already went in the sequence, numerical sequence in here. Let's have group 4 speak, contribute, and then we'll go ahead and continue with the presentation. Group 4.
Marika, that's us, I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. All right. So, okay, I will speak for group 4. Okay, we mentioned about the different nationalities, because in some clubs do have different nationalities, and we take it for granted that everybody recites the Pledge of Allegiance. And some people may not feel comfortable doing that. We just have to be cognizant, that we may change that, how you do it. And also, we thought that many clubs don't have the native Hawaiians represented well enough. And also, David also mentioned, if it, segueing from the Pledge of Allegiance, do we really, when we say 4-way test, do we really, think of the meaning of those 4-way tests, rather than just reciting it for the sake of it? So those were interesting points from our group. Oh, by the way, so it's not just the different nationalities. Alicia mentioned that her mom is a Jehovah's Witness who don't give a Pledge of Allegiance to any flags. So.
Okay, thank you very much, Mariko. So great examples of diversity. And you know what? There's probably thousands and thousands of more, because you could break it down even further. The point that we're trying to make here is that, it's when you think about how you run your club meetings, or when you run or put together an event and things like that, it's all about how you're addressing the needs of those people that are in your club that will fit into many of these categories, as well as how do you attract members so that it represents the communities that we serve. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and continue on with our presentation here, just so that we can make time. The second component of DEI obviously is equity. So equity is the guarantee of fair treatment, access, opportunity, and advancement for all, while striving to identify and eliminate barriers that have prevented the full participation of some groups. So that's kind of the technical definition of equity. when you go to the Rotary International website, they define equity in a simpler term here, and it's basically the fair treatment, opportunity, and investments of all Rotary participants. So think about that and what that really means, right? So it's a little bit different than the terminology diversity. Diversity, we're talking about the categories of people, perspectives, cultures, and things like that. Equity is the actual treatment, the opportunities in your club, and the advancement. And opportunity doesn't necessarily mean membership. It also means things like if you're putting together a project, does that include a lot of other different categories? In the group that I was in, someone talked about physical ability and disability, right? So, you know, if you're all your projects require people to stand up all the time, but you've got somebody who's in a wheelchair, are you creating a Rotary experience that is a fair treatment, opportunity, and advancement for all Rotarians? So that's another way to look at it. Okay, so with that said, we're gonna go 5 minutes again, real quickly, and in your breakout rooms, come up with at least, let's just go like with 2 scenarios. Come up with at least 2 scenarios that could be deemed unfair treatment, opportunity, or advancement in a club experience. Okay, so an example I just gave you, right? We talked about if all of your club projects require you to stand up for, you know, 2-3 hours a day and whatnot, is that really giving, is that creating a unfair treatment, an opportunity, and advancement in a club experience? So come up with, you know, up to 5, but at least 2 scenarios. And so we'll then have other groups share what they came up with. So Benson, go ahead and break them out into groups again.
Okay, they're going.